Why do punishments in motorsports need to hurt? Let's get into it. Hello everyone, welcome to Oakman on Racing. And today we're talking about punishments and why they need to hurt. Competitors are looking for an advantage, and if breaking a rule will give them one, they're going to do it. So any series that has taken the time to write a rule that they want enforced has to have a punishment in place that is harsh enough that it is not an advantage to break it in competition. So no rule is complete without the three primary elements. You've got the definition, which is the future action, the thing that you want people to do or not do. You've got definitions for words that have specific meaning within your series. And then, of course, you've got punishments. If you have a rule that says you can't do a thing, but it doesn't say what's going to happen if you do it, then the rule doesn't count. The rule is just a waste of space in the rule book. The reason that people break rules is to gain an advantage. Whether it's for themselves or someone else, whether it's to gain time or make some money, or just because they didn't know the rule existed. Sheer ignorance is a real reason that people break the rules. And the punishment has to be harsh enough to discourage rule breaking. Formula One is probably the most public example in 2024 of a failed punishment. In a Grand Prix, a driver breaking track limits to make a pass who doesn't give the position back is usually given a 10-second time penalty. This can be served at the next pit stop, or if there are no more pit stops, the time is added to the end of the race. A team stuck behind a slower car can do a very simple calculation. If they will gain more than 10 seconds by the end of the race by making the pass, they will do it. If they can't, they won't. And teams are doing just that. Now, this is only a problem in F1 because they say they don't want drivers doing this. In fact, last season it was a 5-second penalty that they've upped this season to 10 seconds. But of course, predictably, it is not harsh enough. We know this because drivers are still doing it. So what F1 needs to do is up the punishment. Make it harsher. Make it so that the calculation doesn't make sense. So what options does Formula One, Ontario go-kart racing, and any other form of motorsports have when it comes to making punishments? Typically, you're looking at a time penalty, a position penalty, financial penalties, or disqualification. Whichever punishment is chosen has to be harsh enough to discourage rule breaking, but it can't be so harsh that people feel like it's not worth participating. It's a hard balance to find, but it's something that you have to do as a series. So for any series, the questions they need to ask are how much an advantage is gained? How much of a disadvantage can it give to another driver? Is it unsafe? How unsafe is it? And how badly does the series want that rule to be followed? Also, what has to be considered is that practice is usually handled different than qualifying, which is of course different than a race. A tricky thing for series is when they decide to consult competitors when choosing their penalties. How many times have you heard a competitor say, oh, they could have handled this differently, or they could have just given us a warning. Why didn't they give us a warning? What they're saying is they don't want to be punished. Doesn't matter that they broke the rule or why they broke the rule. They just want to get away with it. They want you to forget it and pretend it never happened. It's that old adage that everybody in prison is innocent. That doesn't mean that a series should ignore competitors. After all, a bad rule or bad punishment can be just as harmful as not having one at all. But competitors being competitors shouldn't be choosing the values for the series. A good rule of thumb is that whatever they think is fair, bump it up the harshness scale a few notches. Once the series has chosen a penalty, they have to put it in the rulebook. That way officials can enforce it, and competitors know what the punishment for breaking that rule actually is. When they do that calculation, hopefully if you've chosen wisely, it never goes in the favor of breaking the rule. So what should F1 do? Well, first of all, they need to change the rule now and not wait until the end of the season. In my opinion, any driver who makes a pass exceeding track limits that doesn't give it back immediately will have to make a drive-through penalty on the next 2 laps, with no pit stop privileges allowed. You've given them the opportunity to give the position back, and they didn't. You've given them the opportunity to serve the penalty as a drive-through, and they didn't. At that point, they've earned themselves a harsher penalty, and a 1-lap penalty is not something you can calculate. So remember, whatever reason that somebody has for breaking the rules, it was for an advantage. Regardless, the penalty has to be harsh enough to discourage rule breaking. Otherwise, you don't have a rule. It's just a waste of space in the rulebook. Thank you all for watching. I hope you learned something today. If you have any questions or any rules or something that you want me to look at, put a comment down below. Otherwise, I will see you at the racetrack.